You are listening to Season 3 of Transition Tales, hosted by Christina Herr. Listen to stories from the military community that inspire you to visualize your future and feel empowered to move through your own transitions in life. Welcome to Transition Tales, a Live with Courage podcast. I'm your host, Christina Herr. Our guest today is Deana Cannon. Welcome to the show, Deana.
Hi.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I am third generation military, and I have a daughter. My oldest daughter is Navy. She's in boot right now, so she is now fourth generation military. I like to go hiking with Irreverent Warriors. I do. My goal is to do at least on an average 8 hikes a year. So this year my goal is to try to do 12 hikes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm also in a pageant. I'm Miss Classic Texas, and I'll be in a pageant in Seattle in June representing the state of Texas.
That sounds really fun. So do you find a lot of hiking trails then that are locally, or do you like hike all over the United States?
I hike all over the United States.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah. I went to Key West in December. That was the first time I've been to Key West in many years. So usually I go back. So I got started off in Colorado Springs, and I usually go back to Colorado every year. So.
Okay. Is that your favorite place to hike then, is Colorado?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love it. So can you tell us a little bit about how your transition out of the service was or is currently?
So I left the service in 2004, and my initial transition was a hot, stinking mess. I was dual military, so I had dropped my packet for PA school, and my ex-husband pulled the family care card, and he volunteered to deploy so that he didn't have to watch our children.
Interesting.
So I ended up having to get out of the military and, do what I loved. I loved taking care of my children. I stayed at home for a couple of years and was forced into the role of being a military spouse, which was difficult because I was lost. I mean, I got the FRG leadership position dropped in my lap when my ex-husband became a warrant officer. I had at no time did I have the opportunity to take care of me at all. I was given this bogus rating. None of my issues were ever addressed. Every time I got seen, I was told to go on post and get seen and not go to the VA, disregard the VA because the VA was substandard. And had I known that it would have been a nightmare to get my ratings and get all of this red tape cleared, I would have never stepped foot in the hospital. I would have never used my married name. I would have just stuck with, my maiden name and just transitioned that way. But what you don't know, you don't know. They like you that way, especially if you're a female. They like you to do your duty and be the dumb spouse and carry on.
Is that kind of how you felt when you were forced into that role as a military spouse? Is that like your rank and stuff was essentially stripped from you and you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I don't know if you remember those military bags that were very popular amongst the spouses, how they walked around and they carried their spouse's rank. Well, when I had to go to one of those OCSC meetings, and it was highly recommended that I obtained one of those, I obtained one with my jump wings, my EFMB badge, and my rank and my maiden last name on it.
So it sounds like a part of the transition that you experienced, you kind of lost your own military veteran identity and it was replaced with somebody else's identity. Is that
Yes,
kind of how it felt?
exactly. Exactly. And if that's not bad enough, when you get into a corporate position, you're expected to be shoved into heels and a dress and lose everything that you learned. Well, I served with nothing but men. All of the units that I was with was either scouts or infantry or tankers. I was one of the first. I was the first female medic attached to an FA unit in Germany.
What's an FA unit?
Field artillery.
Okay, field artillery.
Yes. So I was never around. The only other female medic I was ever around was every once in a while. I would get assigned with one of them, and they wouldn't last that long because they just couldn't adapt to the culture.
So you fit in very well then with that culture, with the very, what we see on TV, like in the movies, military culture of, you know, chasing down the bad guys, getting the mission done, no questions asked,
Yeah.
you know, hanging around, shooting the shit type
Yeah,
of thing.
exactly. Exactly. Because again, you know, growing up military, being around military, I knew at the age of 10 what I wanted to do. So I already had that mindset. I already knew what I wanted to do. It's just doing it. And then when I did it, I felt at home. When I got into basic training, I was at home. When I got to my first duty assignment, there was no culture shock. When I deployed, there was no culture shock. The adaptivity was just instant. So it was easy for me.
And yeah, that definitely is a shock, going from that type of environment to essentially, I'm assuming, a stay-at-home military spouse, at least for a short period of time.
Yes, for a short period of time. Then I went back to school. I got my nursing license, which was a mess because, again, it's a female dominant work environment. I got mean girled in the bathroom multiple times. I'm just not that kind of a person. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, I'm going to call it a duck.
So it sounds like you've had a tough time finding where you fit in with your veteran identity that you have.
Yes, initially, yes. Where I work at now, I have a little bit of a struggle. So I'm a vocational rehabilitation counselor for the state of Texas. I find these people jobs, and I do it kindly, I do it respectfully, and I do it humbly. I'm not arrogant about it.
So you said you do vocational rehabilitation. Like, have you
Mhm.
found like some purpose in that position?
Yes, and my clients are primarily the blind and visually impaired, so they're even more of a challenge. There's very few of us counselors that are assigned to that group of people. Those people require a lot of attention and require somebody to have a lot of critical thinking skills and have a lot of patience. I have the patience of Job. I can I can sit back and read case notes all day long and read policy all day long and make sure that that individual is going to get my 100%.
That sounds like something that is very much needed in our community, is somebody that is dedicated like that.
Yeah.
Are there other ways that you have found kind of your place and where you fit in, or, you know, your another part of your purpose?
Yes. So I did when I was hiking with IW initially, the former president, he had found a lot of purpose with me. I volunteer as a crisis intervention counselor. So at the hikes, I would talk to other veterans. I'm a 3-time suicide survivor. So I would talk to other veterans and let them know, hey, it's not that bad. It may seem that bad, but really, It's not worth whatever mindset you are in, whatever point in your life you feel you're at, it's going to get better. It will get better. There are people here that care about you. And just that little bit of information and talking to people like that, sometimes that's all they need.
Right.
Sometimes introducing them to somebody else that can reach out to them is what they need. So that person, I had my find with them, but I started volunteering at various other crisis intervention places. I talked to women that are at risk, that are at battered shelters, and I help people out as much as possible. So yeah.
It sounds like it's something that you're very passionate about.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have a hard time seeing that hope for ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And especially if you have a very toxic person in your life and they firmly have you convinced that you don't matter and nothing you have done on this earth is worth a darn and everything you do is wrong. And that's the mindset I was in, because that's where my ex-husband had me. He had me mentally thinking that I was just this terrible person, and everything I did, I mean, I woke up and I was wrong. I mean, that's just the mindset that he had me. And never mind all of the accomplishments that I had done on my own. So I have like 3 difficult learning disabilities, and I take no meds at all whatsoever. I just take the time and I know what works best for me. So overcoming these challenges and learning how to overcome these challenges, plus maintaining a 3.5 GPA in a master's program, and that's where I'm at right now. But when I was in my bachelor's program, I saw numbers different. So math was always difficult for me, and I couldn't figure out why. But it's the way that I looked at numbers and how I process numbers. It's almost like a form of dyslexia.
Okay.
Oh,
it sounds like you have a lot of experience with challenges in life, and I think you're an amazingly strong woman. Hearing you speak about this stuff so confidently, you're just so open about it, and I think that really matters for folks to listen to. I might have a listener out there that is struggling in a relationship similar to that. How did you get out of that? Like, if you don't mind sharing that.
That was so hard. And if I had to do it all over again, I would have been so much more careful. It took over 5 years to completely disconnect with my ex-husband. I advise anybody to find out what the process of protection orders are in your state. And if they're not secure, and if they're not to where you could be safe, leave that state. Find a state that has good protection orders, and become a citizen in that state. Take up residency for however long. If it means getting a post office box, get a post office box and establish yourself that way. And then have a plan and stick to that plan. Start saving money. Start putting money somewhere where he cannot find it or she cannot find it. Because let's face it, there are some brutal women out there that have abused men. So men are not the only ones.
Right.
They just don't come forward as often as we do.
Yeah, I can see that. Did you have any resources that you were able to tap into to help you get through that, or was it just kind of on your own?
I have an angel that I still stay in contact with in Junction City, Kansas. She was the only one in my corner. Her name is Kim. She worked at the crisis center, and I call her every once in a while, and I just, talk with her to find out how she's doing.
When you reached out to do the podcast, you mentioned that, you try to keep this positive mindset when you're going through these challenges. How do you maintain that positivity? Do you have like a method or?
I had gotten in the habit. My last suicide attempt, I reached out to a therapist, and I still see this therapist on a regular basis. She was the only person that literally got in my face and basically told me, she's like, you know, it's good that you wallowed in your shit. Now, guess what? It's time you own your shit. You be the master of your shit. And if it's not your shit, guess what? Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go. So for me to grasp that, what she had me do is when I first woke up a long time ago, I had to say 3 things that were positive about me and 3 reasons why I needed to be on this planet, because life is not, you're not given anything at all. Life is earned. You earn everything. So I'd wake up and I'd say 3 things that were positive, and then I'd say three reasons why I was there or here. So, and that just kept pushing me forward. And now just every day I wake up, it's beautiful. I have my dogs, I have my friends, I have my townhouse that I got myself. I have a job that I love. I have volunteer work that keeps me very, very fulfilled. um, Life is great. Life is great.
So it's one of those things, if you practice enough and you're intentional enough, that, it may just stick with you, long term.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm curious, was she your first therapist that you ever tried?
no, she was therapist number 50.
Wow. This is something that I like to talk to people about because a lot of people don't like to go to therapy, and they'll always say it's because of a specific therapist. And I'm like, sometimes you have to find the person that works for you. Like you're interviewing them, when you're seeking out care, because not everybody is a good fit for you. Like it sounds like that therapist was a good fit for you with the way she spoke to you and the way she understood you as an individual. And she wasn't trying to make you into something that you weren't.
Exactly. Now, bear in mind when you're in the military and you go through, especially being a medic, when you go through a crisis situation, in order to get cleared to go back, or to continue on, you have to see a therapist. So it used to be, if you were truthful, that was a career killer. So when I say I saw 50 therapists, it's not like I saw them on a regular basis. It's,
right.
Oh yeah, I'm okay. You're okay. We're okay. Put me back where I need to go. Just clear me.
Right. But you've had experiences with other therapists to know whether somebody was going to click with you or not. The other thing that I think is key there as well is that you already knew how to play the therapy game. And when you went to this therapist, you might have been at a moment in your life where you were ready to actually do the work. And, some people know how to play that game, but playing that game isn't doing yourself any service. It's doing yourself a disservice.
Yes.
You also mentioned that you're going to be in a pageant. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I'm curious.
So it's called American-United Pageantry, and there's representatives from I'm not sure how many different states. So I am in the 40 and above group. I'm 53. And I Miss Classic Texas. So I'm the only one in my age group in the state of Texas. And the competition is primarily about your platform. So it's basically how much you are doing for your community and what you're doing for your community. That's what you're judged off of. You're not judged off of your appearance. You're not judged off of, what you look like in a dress or how well you can twirl a baton. You're judged off of your interview skills and you're judged off of what you've done for your community. So, and that's why I chose it.
So what exactly made you interested in pageantry to begin with, like just to getting into it at all?
I wanted to get the message out there about the invisible, what we call the invisible disabilities. And I wasn't sure how. I mean, I thought about doing a podcast, myself, but I looked at the statistics about how successful podcasts are versus, publicly getting out there and doing things, for the community and helping out within the community and plastering my name out there along with why I'm doing this. And I felt like that was probably the best way to do it is, hi, and with this big, huge crown, by the way,
right.
And this sash, and going to all these public appearances and saying, oh, by the way, my platform is invisible disabilities, people who suffer from TBIs, PTSD, MST, learning disabilities, various other invisible disabilities that you don't see on the outside. But we've got this raging typhoon, hurricane, whatever going on the inside. But because we look normal, people treat us normal, but
Or they expect
we're not.
They expect us to be normal.
Yes,
that's
and
the
they
other
expect
thing.
us to function on this level. And yeah, I've got an IQ of 137, but so what? That doesn't mean that I can do all of this other stuff. That doesn't mean that I know everything. It means that I might be able to pass some crazy test.
So you got out before the big hoopla about military transition. Then you got out before all these nonprofits and the TAP program being mandatory and being revamped.
It was still mandatory. It was
still
mandatory.
It wasn't mandatory for me when I got out in 2008, but maybe that's the Air Force. But they've definitely revamped it since then. The VA compensation process has gone through a couple of different transitions itself. Looking at how things are now for those individuals that are transitioning out, do you think your transition might have been a little bit different if you had access to better resources or more resources?
Absolutely. So I know the difference. My first job, or my second job as a nurse, I worked at the TBI clinic out at Fort Riley. That was my first job. My second job after that was working case management. So I was basically a glorified number cruncher. I was a person that people saw. I had 375 service members. I was a person that they saw before they went into the MEB process. So I knew all about that whole transition stuff. I had to meet with the Pueblos once a month. And my transition, if I would have known and had access, like you said, to the stuff that they have now back then, it would have been so much easier. It would have been so much easier. And had I transitioned outside of the state of Texas, maybe, I don't know, St. Louis, I know I would have gotten a higher rating than what I got. And I would not be dealing with,
Well, I don't know if you saw this, but there was an article that was actually written back in, I want to say 2010, where they actually did an investigation in the VA compensation process and found that women were not receiving ratings as much as men were.
They still aren't.
I know we still have a long ways to go, but I also see that the progress that we have made with these programs, but it's people tell us all the time that we need to fight for things. And I'm like, why do we have to fight for things that we have earned? That's what really bugs me about that idea of, we'll just keep fighting.
Yeah. Or what gets me is how I had a social worker look at me in the face and tell me that because my abuser, I was married to my abuser. And yes, we were dual military. Yes, I was on orders. Yes, I was in a field environment on a couple occasions when my ex-husband would come out there and take what he wanted to when he wanted to. So when I try to, and I still can't get MST, I'm still trying to get MST put on my ratings. But I had a social worker look at me and say, well, that was your husband. Okay, no means no.
I completely agree with that. What do you think was your biggest challenge, since transitioning out of the service?
I think my biggest challenge was finding my place in corporate America. When I say I've gone from job to job to job to job, I have gone from job to job to job because of those unwritten rules, the unwritten social rules that they have, where you can't be honest. You can't say certain things. You have to act a certain way. You have to talk a certain way. You have to learn this whole different mindset. And I never learned it. I mean, I just never learned it. So I worked for USAA at one time. That was one of two jobs that I had when I lived in Colorado, because Colorado was really expensive. So I literally had two jobs, and USAA was the biggest political nightmare of a job to work for. I had it with this whole mentality and this mindset. The second week there, I got cornered in the bathroom by the mean girl group. Oh, you're that veteran. Are you gonna like threaten us?
They did not.
Oh yeah, they did. One of them was like, are you gonna threaten us? And I'm like,
People think that doesn't exist. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because people think that doesn't exist, and it so exists.
And I said, do you want me to threaten you? I mean, that's just me. And she's like, and I said, well,
that is some lack of veteran cultural competence there.
They only hire 10%. Only 10% of that corporation is veteran. I had to stop knife handing. That was another thing I had a problem with. I didn't realize I was knife handing. I was knife handing one of the secretaries, and I didn't realize it, because I'm sitting there. I'm like, look at that computer there.
So would it have been better to point? Would it have been better to point? Like, what's the difference?
I don't know.
You see, like, what's, because some cultures you have to point with two fingers, not one finger. I guess because I like to point with one hand too, and I wasn't even in the Army.
I should have just gone.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, how were you supposed to point at whatever you were pointing at? Like, what is the proper pointing protocol?
And because I looked intense, I'm like,
yeah, you did. You were very passionate about what you were talking about. You weren't murder face. You were passionate. And
but I didn't know that I was doing all that. So I had to learn. I actually took a communications class so that I could learn how to be more politically correct, how to tone down my volume, and how to talk in a therapeutic manner.
Well, I think that's kind of nice, so that you did that, because even though you find it utterly ridiculous that you have to conform in such a drastic manner, not that we shouldn't conform at all, but in such a drastic manner. But the fact that you decided that you were just going to be the bigger person and go make some adjustments to improve your communication skills in the workplace, I think says a lot about you as an individual.
Taking myself out of the equation and being objective and looking at things objectively, I had to really take myself out of the whole situation and look from the outside in and go, oh, wow, maybe if I would have approached things a little bit different and not have been so direct, and maybe put a filter on my mouth. But
it's not like you went through some kind of transition training that taught you that.
No.
We go through basic training to learn customs and courtesies and proper behavior and etiquette, like knife handing. going into the
And
service, but they don't reverse that when we
no,
get out of the military, especially for those that join at a young age. We don't learn those skill sets. We learn how to be military.
yeah,
And then when we get out, like they just expect this switch to get flipped. Now, for some people that have been in more political positions while going through the ranks in the military, yeah, it might be an easy transition. For others that were low ranking or were in more of a combat, environment where we don't have time to discuss, that transition, they need a little extra, hey, this is what proper communication looks like, in the environment that you decide that you want to be in. Now, if you don't want to work in
yes,
corporate America, that's fine. There's plenty of, industries and places where you can still have a very military mentality and be successful. I mean, I don't see very many, like, I'm pretty sure in construction, they don't sit there and have conversations about everything. I'm sure
yeah,
that because it's very mission focused and it's very safety focused, that they don't have a lot of time to do that. So they're going to be a very
no,
direct environment. So I think it's all about choosing that environment that you want to go into and
yeah.
obtaining those skills to be successful. But if you don't know what you don't know, what kind of advice would you give, others that might be, struggling with finding their place or even knowing how to be more adaptable to a civilian role? Like what advice would you give to them?
I would honestly tell them there are online communication classes. I know within my job, we have the state of Texas offers a communication class. If you are struggling, if you work for the state of Texas and you're having difficulty learning how to talk to others and learning how to build those communication skills, they have classes for that. I would recommend that they either pull up a podcast and listen to a podcast, or maybe even pull up a Facebook group. There's plenty of Facebook groups that offer free training on that. Or maybe even if they have a good confidant, ask them. So, hey, what is it about me that you find that is
Off-putting.
marketable? Yeah, or offensive.
Yeah.
If you were my boss and you were going to hire me and you were going to interview me, and maybe even do mock interviews with them, practice those skills. And if they're a good mentor and a good confidant, they'll be honest with them and they'll tell them, look, this is what you need to work on. I need you to not show up to a mock interview with sweatpants and the Rolling Stones t-shirts and your hoodie. So, no.
Can't go to an interview like that. So do you have any final words for this podcast? Maybe something that you wanted to talk about that you didn't get a chance to talk about?
I think the only thing that I would probably maybe add is if you're transitioning, and especially if you're transitioning and you're in a troubled relationship, definitely look at the free resources like the crisis centers. Look for those places for counseling. There's some amazing staff that work there. If you don't have any job skills, you can volunteer there and get job skills there. They can help you out. So
Yeah, I love volunteerism for job skills.
yes, I do too. I do too. You're not only giving back to your community, but you're learning something that could potentially be a trade, and you can find out whether it's something you like or whether it's something that's no, not my monkey, not my circus. So
Right, right. Thank you so much, Deanna, for being a guest on this podcast and sharing your story with us. So we're going to go ahead and sign off for today. Bye, everybody.
bye. Thank you so much.